Hi guys, welcome back to Planet Coaster here on Geekism. My name's Jonty and today we're continuing our Let's Build series, and we're still over in the western area, and we're sort of fleshing out the street area with the shops, and we also put down a flat ride as well. It's a bit of a mix and match episode this week. We kind of move around and head to different areas, but hopefully there's a little bit more going on than there was in the last episode. I apologise, the last episode was a little light on content. I didn't really get time to play much over the weekend, but we're back in now and having a great time here in our Western Park. The first thing we do is heavily inspired by something I actually saw on Facebook, and I thought it was absolutely gorgeous, and basically I've recreated it here, slightly changed it a little, but it's very similar to something I saw on Facebook on a group called Theme Park Simulation Games, I think it is, which is a sort of fan group for all these kind of games, but to be honest with you, it's mostly Planet Coaster at the moment. And basically it's a meet and greet area for the Western themed entertainer who is named Elly. She's a fantastic sort of gunslinging chick, and she looks really cool. And one of the things in this game you can do is use a thing called work rosters, which make it so that all your staff can go from certain areas, and one thing you can do with those is make them stay still, which I think is very important for entertainers. Normally in this game as standard they just kind of wander around, but for me, especially in larger parks, entertainers very much stationary in their own designated areas, and people come to them and even queue up if it's a relatively famous person. You know, if you ever go to Disney and try and meet Mickey Mouse, he isn't just wandering around. You know, chances are you're queuing up to get a photo with him. So that was something I wanted to sort of replicate in this park. And this is the first of those. So each of the zones will most likely have an area like this that's heavily themed, and has the place to meet the mascot for that area. One thing that is in the one I saw on Facebook with these signs here that say things like the greatest and the bravest, and I didn't want to just do a straight copy, so I ended up getting rid of those and just making them into regular sort of wall areas. But I love the design. I love these flags, these blue and red sort of drapes. I think they look really good. We actually use those quite a bit in the area around the flat ride that we're going to build as well. The idea for the whole areas of these parks is that each one will have maybe 2 or 3 flat rides, a couple of coasters, or track rides at least, and then a series of shops, all themed within the area. So here we've already got the rapids, obviously, and obviously we're going to be doing a mine train as well. That'll be in the next episode. So they're the 2 rides that I think really sort of fit the Western theme. Of course, the log flume does as well, but I have an idea for the log flume for the pirate theme later on, so we're going to save that for that. So we have the rapids, and there she is. So she starts wandering off until I attach her to that place there, and the only thing is you can't adjust her Z direction, so she's always sort of facing this way a little as opposed to sort of facing dead on, but I was kind of happy with it because that's the area people coming into the area are from, so it looks like she's sort of welcoming people into the western area, so that's fine. Anyway, yeah, so a couple of coasters. We're going to have a mine coaster and then a few flat rides that kind of fit the theme. So the one I've gone for here is the new Chair-O-Plane, it's called. One of these ones that sort of swings the chairs out really wide. I'm also thinking the tilt-a-whirl, although they call it something else in this game, and maybe the balloon ride as well are probably the flat rides that fit. They're relatively sort of family-friendly ones, but we're still quite close to the start of the park, and I think pirates and sci-fi lends themselves more to sort of thrill rides than Western does. So we start this off. I was quite shocked at how sort of wide it went. The original plan was to the left of it here is to have a town hall, but I'm going to have to change that plan now because these go a lot wider than I thought they would. And but it's a great looking ride. We sort of toned the colours down a little bit to make it look a little bit more westerny, and we let it do a few tests as we figure out what the hell's going on next. So the queue area here, I only decorate the front of the queue area and round the ride itself. The back queue area will actually be sort of intertwined a little bit with the mine train, so I've left that for now until we come back to it later on. So here I really wanted to do a custom fence using these awesome drapes, and we find a little bit of rope that kind of fits in that little gap nicely there, and that becomes our custom fence that ends up going right around this ride. And the theming for this ride, and probably all the flat rides in the area, is meant to be just like a little bit like a travelling fair, I guess. So there's a lot of billboards, and there's a lot of sort of luggage and crates and sort of thrown up lean-tos and things like that. The idea is that it's a little bit like a travelling fair. That's kind of the theme I was going for. And so these fences look as if they could be sort of thrown up relatively easily. And I use this jetty piece here from the pirate set to make a bit of a billboard space here to add on the name of the ride, which is the Whirly Gig, which is actually something my wife came up with. I thought it was quite a fitting ride. Sort of fitted the Western theme and also the name of the ride. I think it might actually be its own ride, the Whirly Gig. I have a feeling there is another ride called that, but I can't find it in the game. So for the most part, I thought it fit quite well. Right, what we're doing next. There we go. We're going to actually add on a few bits there. I found these wanted posters that look awesome. So we end up actually pasting those around the area a little. But there we go. We name it the Whirly Gig. And I think we had a boot for no reason other than there's a boot. And I thought it kind of fit a little. and there we go. So the queue for this ends up being quite long constantly. And I do shave down the ride a little using the sequencer. But it has really quite a low excitement rating. The excitement rating is only 3, even with the extra sort of features. So I end up sort of leaving it as it is, and just have to keep reminding myself that we are in Sandbox, and it doesn't necessarily matter too much if people are queuing. You know, we're not sort of having to really sort of min-max the profits coming in here, and I just have to keep sort of telling myself that as we carry on with the builds. So here we go then, a bit of luggage then. This is acts of one of two things. One, it's a bit of light theming and sort of helps with the sort of travelling fair sort of style, but also it acts as a fence, really, you know. And this happens a lot in parks that I've seen, that, you know, not every single area is fenced off with a standard fence. Often they're sort of fenced off with items of scenery that are enough to mean that you're not coming past them. There we go. I just realised that I'd not actually seen Elly do anything, so I thought I'd potter over and check that people were actually stopping next to her. So we try and build a little lean-to just on the top of the ride here. Fortunately, using the grid, it was a little too big, so we end up making all this manually. But it's really simple stuff. It's literally just sort of 4 posts with a bit of a roof on top, to be honest with you. But again, I wanted it to look sort of thrown up and sort of travelling fair style, so we keep it quite simple. I use a corner piece here because I just think it looks a little bit more random and dishevelled, and that was kind of the theme I wanted to go for. We end up building a few more buildings onto the main street as well after this. You'll notice the toilets behind us here, they were added in off camera purely because every notification I got was people moaning about toilets, so I just quickly threw one up in the right sort of style just to shut them up, basically. So we carry on with we get rid of the path fencing here, and then we carry on with our custom fencing around the last bit of the ride there. It's quite a big job, really, but it's not too bad. Once you've got the actual fence piece made, you can duplicate it relatively easily and sort of carry it around here. And you'll see here we join the fence up with the luggage there, or the I can't think what the word is, like steamer crates, I guess, and they sort of act as the last piece of the fence there. And finally, just odd little bits just to finish off the design here. I found a nice bunting piece. I was originally going to use that, but it wasn't quite long enough. But there's some nice bunting that originally in the alpha was on sticks, but now there's a version of it not on sticks either, so you can actually place it sort of in between buildings like that, and it just sort of adds to the sort of travelling carnival theme. That's pretty much it with the Whirly Gig, I think. I would just sort of fence off this last little area, I think, yeah. Forgot about that. I love the little guy standing there letting people in, saying hello, and also if you close the ride, he sort of waves his hands and shakes his head as if it's shut, and it's just the little details like that I'm still noticing now that really are fantastic and really sort of elevate this game, I think. Again, we don't quite finish this fence all the way down. That's because, again, it's going to be going into the area that will become the queue and the start of the mine train. So we just sort of add it down to here, and I think we just chuck in a crate just to finish it off. But there, that sort of green area in between the rapids and this will be the entrance to the Runaway Mine when we end up there. So I sort of toyed with the idea of putting another flat ride down here, but decided against it in the end because I really sort of wanted a western street, which is what we end up doing here. So here I wanted the sort of very traditional sort of corner saloon, with a sort of long I was going to say patio, but that's not the word they use in the States. Deck, there we go. So I wanted a sort of deck on the front there. This actually isn't a usable store. I was originally thinking of placing a shop on the corner there, but decided against it in the end. And you'll see later on I try and fit one in, and it doesn't really work. And I haven't really built this with a store in mind, so the dimensions of it don't really work very well. So instead it's purely for show. I mean, it is on the Steam Workshop, so if you wanted to download it yourself and have a play with it, you may be able to find a way of getting a store in there and making it a little bit more useful as opposed to just being purely aesthetic. But I was quite happy for it to just be a nice enough looking building. The other thing I'm doing here is using two buildings in one to get away from it just being a box, and this is a bit of an advanced technique because you have to sort of keep going back and forth between the buildings, but it's the only way to sort of get the wall pieces off that sort of grid that's created when you place one of them down. So you'll see here I've built a corner and left that front bit open there. That won't stay open. I'm actually going to use the wall pieces and another building to make a sort of corner shape. You'll see that in just a moment. We're working on some balcony area here. Loving all the wood textures. It all looks really great. I can't fault the art team on this game. All the stuff you get is stunning. The only thing I will say is a couple of the colour options where you can change the colour. Their choices are a little strange. Like we had in the river rapids in the last episode, you can't change the blue of the sign. And there's a few times here where I try and change the wood to lighter colours, and it just looks very strange. So there you go. You'll see that this is actually a completely separate building there, these two pieces of wall that I've just put down, and it constantly stays a separate building, and that's how we manage to do sort of corner shapes on buildings. Like I say, it's a little tricky, it's a little time consuming, but I do think it is worth it in the end to get building shapes that are just a bit more interesting than a big old box. Now the other thing to do is I placed that door down, but thinking about it, really this should have a proper sort of saloon door, which is sort of a relatively large open area with a swinging door. So I may go back and try and replicate that. I can't think off the top of my head how to do it, but I'm sure there's a way of doing that. So I might go back and change that, because that door, whilst it's nice, it doesn't really quite fit this, and I didn't notice until after sort of filming was finished really with this. So I may well go back and change that up. So here we're at the second story. We're actually knocking the walls back a little, just to give an interesting bit of shape onto the second floor there. We've got that nice sort of outcrop there of the building, and we keep just designing it with bits of wood and filling it all out. The other building we do today is a bank, which is again a relatively small facade building, but it has an ATM on the front, and I just thought that was a fitting sort of way of using ATM. And you usually have a traditional sort of bank in these Western themes, so that's what we do there. Windows there fit quite nicely, I think, in the gaps we've made, so I was quite happy with that. Again, all these buildings, looking back at them, could probably do with a little bit more detail. So here we go. There's me trying to fit the shop in and quickly give it up. They could all do with a little bit more detail, maybe some work around the windows. So I may go back on my own time and do those. I'm always a little bit wary when I'm recording to spend ages on the minute details, because I realise that it makes very sort of repetitive footage, especially when it's sped up afterwards as well. So I may end up going back and just sort of tweaking them a little bit, but anything I do I'll always show you guys in the next video. And we're just sort of finishing off the top area here, and I struggle to kind of fill in those corners. I keep looking. I was hoping some of these sort of wood brackets were a little bigger. Unfortunately they're not. They're all relatively small. But we do end up finding this. I don't know what this piece is actually meant for. Maybe sort of corners of floors, I guess. But I find that actually it sort of fits quite nicely there with another piece underneath it. It makes a relatively decent sort of corner piece for the area there. This piece, I don't know what it is. I'll be honest with you, it looks a little phallic, but it's so useful. I end up using it all over the place just to sort of finish off little areas. I'd love to see a few more pieces like that, just sort of generic little sort of wooden posts and things, because you really can do quite a lot with them. So that's pretty much the building finished there then. The last thing we do is sort of box it all off. The back of it still needs some work. but I'll probably do that off camera again. And the only reason I feel like it does need work is because the train is going to be coming past here. I still haven't decided how much of the this area the train is actually going to see, and how much is going to be covered up with trees and things like that. The train area will get some theming as the path comes underneath it. That's going to create the entrance to the area, so that will be built out with sort of clock towers and a bridge and things like that to make it a little bit more interesting. So we put this ATM down and people absolutely flock to it, and again, it's one of those issues that I have with this. Is really Sandbox, they shouldn't care about money. I mean, I've put the ATM down because I thought it was a nice fit for the build, but really Sandbox should have no money in it at all. Whereas this sandbox is just that you have unlimited money. All the other features of the management still apply. But really, I'd like to see a sandbox mode where money isn't an option. Here's one of the wooden pieces I was speaking about before, where the colouring's a little off. This is a fully white piece, and it doesn't quite go as white as I'd like. And that would be fine, apart from the fact that all the other pieces, when you turn them right, go almost a brilliant white. And you'll see here that all these pieces are the same colour. Yet, they've all got slightly different shades, so I may go back and have a tweak with those. Same with the windows. So you can see there, the windows and the columns are all very, very white, whereas the other bits are a bit more of a faded white. So I may end up going back and sort of playing around with those, maybe turning the windows and the pillars into maybe more of a grey to fit them in with the other pieces. So I end up going back and forth a little bit on the roof, the upper floor at least here. I wasn't quite happy with the sort of flatness of it, so end up bringing that forward and adding pieces on like that and making a sort of protrusion that way. Obviously remove those windows now, they don't stay like that. So yeah, that's pretty much all we do in this episode. So we've got a few more buildings of the main street. Well, I say main street, just sort of the western area. We'll add a few more in as you're coming in, especially with some more sort of shops and food places. They really do like a large selection of those, which I think is good. I think it's realistic. It's what you would expect. So yeah, I'm more than happy to do that. And then we had another sign there just saying ATM, and there's the bank. And then for some reason I realised the floor there isn't covered, which it should be. And so a quick look around, and then finally we realised that the saloon hasn't got a sign on, so we better stick a sign up on the saloon. So yeah, I do think I'm going to go back and change that door. It's not quite fitting for a saloon. I'll probably do that in my spare time. All these little gaps here, I really do think that they need filling, and I think that's one of the big differences between a sort of half good looking park and a good looking park, is that little bits like that should be filled in. So there we've added a water bucket and a hitching post. This thing, I think I want a fountain there, but I haven't decided what. So if you've got any suggestions as to what would make a good looking western themed fountain, please let me know in the comments. Right, some glamour shots to finish off with. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give us a like. It really does help out the channel. And if you're not already, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next one.